Welcome to Deptford Library, Deptford Lounge, to the 7th Poetry in the Library event that we've run this year. If you're not already familiar, which I'm sure quite a few of you aren't because you're not even from the UK, this is a monthly reading series with Q&A that we run across all 11 libraries in the borough of Lewisham. Normally it's two poets who have a connection to South London, but obviously today we're breaking with tradition for this extra special edition, thanks to Carolina Press. So I invited Ghazal to take part in a panel discussion back in May on independent publishing and translation as part of a promotional campaign we were running around the International Booker Prize and trying to foreground writing in translation across the borough in general in our collections. And I was so pleased when she got in touch to organise this event, and I hope that we can organise more things together in the future. So I just wanted to say thank you to Ghazal.
It's very special to have you here tonight. We are launching 3 books by Carolina Press. The Book of Skies. The library will close at 7 o'clock. Very quiet. So, for which we are very happy to have Leslie Kaplan visiting us, as well as Jennifer Papp and Julie Carr, translators of the book. So. But that's for the last half of the event, and the first half before the break, we hear from Rachel Levitsky, Khashayar, Kess, Mohammadi, and Laura Dolp. But before that, when we were putting together this reading, and with all different countries that are coming here today for this reading, just realized that all these countries participating in this reading today are complicit in the genocide going on today. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge that we have guests from the United States, from Canada, from France, and here from the UK. And it's good for all of us to acknowledge our role in the genocide happening in Palestine and now expanding to Lebanon. Sorry to be together at such horrific time. Just to start, Laura, you said you want to go second, right?
If it's okay.
Yeah, no, obviously. And Kess, we're having Kess Mohammadi for coming to London for the first time. And Kess is an Iranian-Canadian queer poet who's a very dear friend of mine. A year and a half, we met in Toronto, and since then, not only we have great friendship, but we work together. Carolina published Kess's Daffodils back in 2023, and then Kess also helps with editing Carolina online magazine, and was communicating with authors, which they are very good with answering emails and being on top of that. Carolina is ever grateful to your friendship and for having your book published with us. So, Kess.
Thanks all around, but I'd rather speak less and read more. It's funny when you lose in bed and look up to say I'm different now. Cherries popped with cherries. Fingers circling the question of where the flame may lick deep. I've attained something in our salty tenderness, tiptoes bubbling like strawberries in a champagne glass. What a myth to find a length that fits, palpable but malleable enough, like muscles measured in flex, the angle of marble at the corner of the mouth, sucking. Wait, what happened there in the brine? Hello, piercing. Hi, halitosis. an obstacle for air. You know, when people are so beautiful, it just ruins your day. I couldn't swim. He left me behind. I'm tired of placing the word grief in the center of every page and then building a poem around. Believe it or not, I have nightmares of, well, sitting. Let me tear out the sky, dog-ear it for later, with sweat corroding my underwear as I stare up at the bank tower, stark against the night sky. I was maybe in my second day here. I heard of a dear friend taking his own life, and I opened this book to a quote that said, I got it from Prototype Press, Helen Palmer's Pleasure Beach, and on the page it said, birds continue their obscene and absurd concordances like butter won't melt. I wrote this entire book in another insurgent autumn. I think autumn is always the time for revolutions and all the, you know what I'm talking about. So this first poem in here, it starts with a quote from King Crimson. Children kneel in Jesus till they learn the price of nails. Daffodils stretched off the tongue, so many whites for the washing machine. Dream grammar, succinct but pressing deluse at the mental hospital, edging my dreamscapes and racing to write if you were alive chats and an AI generation of someone or something hypernatural. Daffodils where blankets can stop the sun, real in the death sentence, in the life sentence, minimal plateau, slight mountain. Cold sun through ragged clouds suckling on this side of language. Waking moments, indebted to mind spent and spent on grief, pomegranate seed to bird speech. And masked or unmasked, the train ride is just too long for companionship. So I leave the story. On the night that it is told, you had to be there kind of laughs. Who do you think you are? Fingers pointed and holstered in jackets from frostbite. The book mentions to risk and to privileges to balm salted wounds with the smell of acacia. I swear I'm reading up on pedagogy, and by the discussion, I promise I'll understand. And subtitled with an asterisk is a muddy delta of sedimented thoughts with my cat nibbling on my toes and my hands infinite in their capacity for wonder, a bunch of daffodils biblically parted. And our dance alone at the corner of the wine bar. Rent is due, it always is. My tongue is paved with daffodils, they're violently flashing. I could pinch them and swipe until water. Hey hun, fun fact. Just because you're alone doesn't mean you're the sovereign soul of this corpus. Daffodils are the reason I am the narrator staring into cat eyes with my own cat eyes. Listen, I've tried to explain the predicament and failed every time. So I acquiesce. Teach me the Greeks. Teach me your Greeks. I'm friends with asphalt, knees bent, speaking to the floor, slowed down in the dust. Who would have known to forget the sweetest memory I had to lock it behind the security question, username or password wrong? I follow the discourse of which I understand the shape, and fear transmitted a certain sadness across the language barrier. I hold inside me fearful visceral. I'm looking for the cure that persists still even in the beacon of light, that temple of delusion of which my language is the root. Hey, My tongue is rotten. My xenobody stinks of damn daffodils and their gentle explosions behind my eyes. Curtain drop. I like to slip this poem into bed and cover it so my sitcom parents don't notice I'm gone. Help me color in my thoughts, and this time, stay within the lines. I'm plagued by visions in a dozen different tongues, and have we done the right thing isn't even the right question. A soft, circular motion, I'm learning, but the porno won't stop, even if I plead guilty. Stuck in that on-sale void, checkmarked for fast delivery, and Amazon packages bleeding on doorsteps. I'm invited inside the book and I don't take my shoes off. Such is the pearl, a sediment connecting erogenous zones. You know, it's all about the masterful evasion of states and statements. What do you want me to say? Fraud is fucking funny because it clears your throat. There's no distance in dreams, only itch, and not an allegorical one, just skin screaming. Tethered to the voice, a game we play, to appear sober for a moment, forgetting the mood swings of winter. It's winter, and the sky is closed for renovation. So I apply for a revolution, but I am rejected. My undercurrent is not strong enough to surface. And when I see myself as I see myself in the mirror, when I see myself as I am on the other side, I think about you. And the doors you build, the light you see through the crevice and the light you see through. There's a treatise in fear of the light that may never stop. If I told you I haven't been to the mountain where Farhad was sent to dig scent of lily over rock and rock over snow, how a landscape can bludgeon, how water can brush. I wash myself ashore in intrusive thought, clinically sharp as police station lights that fluoresce this shelter. Like the closet door open for a moment and awfully inviting. Speak to me simultaneously through that subject-object divide. I attend the celebration long enough to leave my tongue in the crowd, that moment of listening and all that comes after. When I take my eyes off the speaker and wander into velvet curtains, the dynamo spins and creates sparks and the failed madness. I was not there when the poem started, will not be there when it ends. Listen, I arrive early for the poem after the word, but before there is sadness in language. My tongue swells, but my words cannot scale to my teeth. They froth in between and floss through, flattened. To always be the ground, to always be the ground. Who is impenetrable? Who is the killing floor of the tongue? Daffodils on the balcony in the way of the sun. You can pierce a man through his silence. You can look at someone. You can look at someone. I'm stuck in teeth. I roll in blobs. I see things when I look at someone. My voice is heavy when gorging on the stars. Don't fill up. There are 3 gas stations left before daffodils. In me there is a military urge to create. Thanks, Dad, for swaddling me in tree bark. Tonight I met your darkness and its many curves. Every once in a while, I respond to the political questions. Because the political questions are just always easy. Just answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And daffodils there. If you want to grab and talk to Kess afterwards. Now I invite Rachel Levitsky, close friend and an inspiration for me for starting the small press Pominar that you can see. Very grateful to all her help and support from the idea till I started that. Rachel Levitsky is a feminist and queer writer. She came out as a lesbian in 1984 and as a poet in 1994. And has been actively involved in the feminist avant-garde ever since. She's the founder of the Belladonna Collaborative, a space that supports feminist voices. Rachel's works include The Story of My Accident is Ours, Under the Sun, and Neighbor, which we have Neighbor there, and so you get a couple, yes. And she's currently working on a memoir called Rachel Levitsky Has No Problems. We are launching Against Travel Anti-Voyage that came out in 2020. And Rachel was just about to come to London to launch it. She was in Paris and even had a ticket to come by. But then the lockdown hit just a week before, so we never launched this book. Now that we are ready to put out the second volume of Against Travel Anti-Voyage, now we're launching the first one. But soon we will have the second one as well. So I welcome Rachel.
It's amazing to be here for many reasons. I get to read with my friends. I've had the great honor of the reading of Leslie Kaplan probably 15 years ago, and it's so great to see you, and your book is amazing. And my friend Julie, and Ghazal, who's an inspiration to me, and Kess, thank you for the reading, and Laura, and I haven't met Jen yet, but tonight. And I've only, I spent a lot of time in Paris, in France, but I've actually probably spent 3 nights in London my whole life. Mm-hmm. And so this is a longer trip, and it's been a delight. My first reading here. It's the Jewish New Year.
Shana Tova.
Thank you, Shana Tova, Mituka. And I was thinking about how all through my life I've had this deep alienation around the Jewish New Year, and that it has somehow alleviated, maybe because my deep alienation is all the time now. But I mean, not just from Judaism, but just like in general toward like what is this thing? But I've also, Julie's actually a great inspiration. Been trying to, I'm a member of JVP. I do a lot of work, anti-Zionist work, but also. But I have this deep secularity as well. So this is a poem I wrote 6 months ago after Lynn Hijinian died. Some group of us came around and we did a bibliomancy, and this is what I came up with, and it's my Shana Tova Mituka. Mituka is sweet, like Happy New Year and a sweet New Year, and so I do wish you all a Happy New Year and a sweet New Year for all beings and all people. The Emerald Tablet for Ariana, and it's Ariana Rines. Basque, rising, it's one, actually it's in 3 parts. 1, Basque, rising, said everything and everybody was hard again because of stairs, stars, at each at different levels. By different levels, I meant I fell from 1 to 2, and because of a TV show, my fall no longer reaches firmly to the ground, decomposing alone, mid-air. What accompanies you? Mid-air, meaning mid-fall. I said, I can do that. She said, she did, then fell, is falling, overreach or underappreciated. The arm speaks volumes, a slight curve in the wrist for come here, elbow bent or hyperextended, all the ways to move that aren't forward, said he who left me with that goodness. I walk the dog backwards. Despite the order of movement, this means that I, not the dog, am behind. 2. The filmic, open-mouthed, gagged is a nod to obscenity, capitalist violence. Is this a thing? Poets love poetry, artists love art. Meme loves artists. What will we call them if not men? Hermit will do. Does hermit hearken from Hermes or Hermetic? Hermit is Hermes, who has knowledge, what keeps you company. We think of caves. Actually, I changed this and I printed it out, but I lost my printout, so I'm gonna improvise. We think of tunnels as inner and down, and use this to explain why the hermit holds a light source lighting down and back. But this tunnel city is in fact a city on a hill. Troglodytes are very fancy, secret dandy sorts of people. those who prim before dinner, like those 10 minutes long last-minute changes of their shoes characters we would like to write about. 3. Poetry is a secret done in public. Poetry is a secret politics running in secret. They always claimed it was the Jews. Hermit, poetry is a marker of form, of politics, from inner to outer world. Who told you he was a Jew? Who told you he worked alone? And a history of breath and speech for Natalie. Far away, further from you, further than you. A history of breath and speech for Natalie. Far away, further than you, I breathe, feeling around for breath. Every sleeping child my eyes happen upon in the tempo of a walk in the burrow of my mother, who sleeps long in her mother's arms, is in Gaza. We are all human animals. We, beloved friends, shy and introvert and aggression, a wonder. How old is this exceptionalism? I love that this series is coming out in these bits and pieces. It's like a serial novel almost. And thank you so much, Parmenar, for this beautiful book. I'll read one poem from the first volume, and that is for sale here tonight, and I'll read some from the one that's coming out. So this is the very, very first poem. Against Travel, for Dana. I dream en route from St. Petersburg, Mississippi to St. Louis, Florida. My vampire lovers are precariously situated in a novel by James Hanahan. More numbers of us are vampires than originally thought. All of us. You can tell by the loose and missing skin of our teeth. Our outfits were cut out skimpily in V's, so skimpy the queen who could fly flew away from all of it. Maybe I am she. They say I am. I want to say I told you so to one of you in particular. What good does foresight do, and when do, and who needs it? I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm stumbling. What good does foresight do, and who needs it when you are like me, queen vampire, who can, but doesn't always fly away? Yeah, sometimes I stay. I earn a mouthful and keep it to myself, as I am, as they say I am.
True story.
This one too. And this is the first one in the next book. Against Travel, for Kevin Spacey. On repeat, in order to exercise it, the inexercisable, I paint a small yellow bone. It floats through and around his enlarged heart. Oops, did he really do that? Yes. Unexpected is this useless interview noise where his face has been removed. We return to the Design Museum where for now, as lover, she likes my choice of earring. Pleasure lights, love's face, a multiple of metals is what makes it work. Waterproof lipstick stays shimmering beyond vigorous dips in a sea. What does in part keep shrinking towards disappearance. Worse, his enlarged heart is a function of inflammation. It's swollen. I wanted to write an essay claiming no possible contamination of the body. It's a thin branch of shallow water I stand in like a stooge. What's a stooge? I argue we're incorruptible, impervious to airborne occupants passing through, incentivizing. My branch and water are thin and shallow, like the metaphor. I've chickened out from saying anything in defense of our maybe contagious, maybe not bodies, and now am needlessly insulting the chicken. From the looks of it, Christopher Plummer is a good guy. Good enough. He doesn't mind the women telling stories, putting men in the uncomfortable seat. He hopes it'll settle from frenzy. Women should bask in the glory of their success. At the age of 54, the LGBTQIA positive mayor had an affair with a cop that will soon ruin her life. She knows it shouldn't, but it will, no matter how strong one is. There's no end to this bodily discomfort. Along with the dead quarterback, a dead Uber driver, age 54. According to the secretary, the foot goes for 125, torso 1,000, and head half that. Against Travel, for Suzanne. Everyone knows Thich Nhat Hanh is Thai. Thai is her first name. Why would everyone know What Ty says gets repeated until I can carry it. It's not the same as a habit that hurts every instance it is practiced or hurts worse. A spot on a lip gets bitten again and again. It's swollen. When conditions aren't good, supports that exist cannot be perceived. Or was I watching the video that Suzanne sent, replaying Judith Butler walking, redefining the walk with her companion, the artist Sonora Taylor, who was born with arthrogryposis and walks alongside with her high-powered chair. You and I argue silently over the cause of our inability to perceive who said it, how it was said, which politics it reveals, and if it is politics at all. How much of it is love? Possibly love tainted by some other emotion. Goddess forgive anger, God forbid jealousy, bloodletting. Events become objects that speaks to what gets in our way. Today's random appearance is, I've got nothing to gain. I could say we, but won't speak for you here. Councilwoman Mariela Franco and her driver, Anderson Gomez, were assassinated in the street. Not last night, the night before. True story. I published a couple of these in a magazine, and I posted it. People were asking for what accomplishments at my job. And a colleague said, Rachel, both of them have the same title. It's great. And actually, not all of them will have the same title, but most of them will have the same title. Against Travel for Sarah. That's Sarah Riggs, who's in the mix. I was thinking about, I've been doing this Belladonna project for 25 years, and many of the people that come through the Belladonna project are now coming through Palminar, and how I'm retreating, and something else is emerging in this network of lineage and friendship and affect that is so much a part of poetry that perhaps is also content, is also form. Maybe we can add that as a third thing. Against Travel for Sarah. Also a true story. I've probably seen something like it before, but today I write to you meaningfully. I've never seen anything like it. That I came all this way in order to make seeing it real. Real makes a different impression than doubt. The love which felt real I couldn't and didn't doubt, even as the ground of it never held ground, but the one covered in razor-sharp shards, the broken form of containers we'd looked toward for life. Goblets. In our case, they were cheap or pretentiously expensive, crystal and plastic ones we'd forgotten about until a sliver of one of them sprung into your toe, or a triangular bit lodged into my knee while I was crawling. Lingering detritus, now covered with bugs, it's heaven. My morning scavenging thoughts lands on a black and white object suddenly appearing. It's me, in a photo, as someone else, a person I'd seen before but couldn't easily place, sent without caption, no attribution. I asked for it, asked you to put this photo you found in an odd box from a neglected corner of a place we both love into your book, like a footnote. A long time ago, before I knew him, Peter said he'd be one. For me, a footnote. Sarah instructs me to have what she calls mature love. Did I leave? Leave heaven? I left Sarah's early this morning, left my hearing behind, near her scent, not seeing. I left her sleeping on clouds. Okay, 2 more. Against Travel for Sabine. This one has a reference to it, my one-night trip here a while ago. It's awesome.
We can also make a everyone is leaving a class. Right?
That's fine. They don't bother me. Do they bother anybody else? I mean, I'm fine. No. I love. Actually,
I can then start after whatever.
No. I'm good. Yeah. Do you want to take a break? Am I out of time?
No. It's just
Okay. Against Travel for Sabine. The arrow points right, but the board upon which it's been drawn tilts northeast, toward a flat 11 a.m. on a space sundial of the mind. I go down the escalator only to be told by a second sign, the exit I seek is up. I want to let Bug know it wasn't cynical. Sabine's remark about the ampleness of love and youth turned apparently scarce past 50, which in women is menopause, a word according to Abigail, and I don't disagree, is unequal, so a difficult object for a poem. No matter, let's return to that abundance turned into snapshot, not a fragment nor a shard. Sabine's once so much, now so little. I loved her exclamation. I pictured just how plump things once were. They don't stay plump, and with what had they been so inflated? Sabine calls it love. Baby girl and Franklin died in front of me after a slow decline that was defining, not horrifying. I watch a beautiful man and a beautiful woman. They like it. They watch back. The three of us simultaneously aging. All right. I don't always hate heterosexuality. The birds here were eviscerated a while ago, consumed by the hunger and the hunt, and who knows what else. Mallory complained to me about house cats eating songbirds. I vacated him, a songbird vacating a fly. Suddenly everyone runs to the window, squealing over a rival flock of gulls. La vache, cries Suzanne. I run too, looking for the cow. My mother, best 55 years of despisal, telling me I've made it, what the fuck, where? Up the escalator to the Eurostar, so much speed, so little light. So la vache, as Leslie knows, is an expression that means like, holy shit. But it's literally translated as the cow, so I was looking for the cow because when somebody screams the cow, we all, cow, we pass the cow when we're driving, we say cow. All right, one more. La vache, holy shit. One more. Against travel for Sabrina. Not C, S, but I want to say it was C who wrote Tinder Akrezon. The languages, the langues are a mix. Vive sola, no mercy, very much, how much mirage to face in hairstyle. I don't forget, or the moves, an argument with gestures in favor of feelings, the horrors, the lipsticks, bulging trousers, $25 thousands, and a photograph under P of one bad man, text next, inflated daily rapey needs, floating alongside particles of thanks gods, paper and fire, not helium and rubber, composite hot balloons. I invite you, no, it's a treat. What's your big problem anyway? Not enough doctors, or that the poop hasn't gone all the way down? Neither. It's that your parents were in that room. All things take such a long time, even at, or do you think it's especially at, their ends? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's a great reading. Thanks. And now I invite Laura Dolp. Laura recently left her academic job just to work on anthologies of translation and poetry and translation. Yeah. and a lot of envy too, I'm sure. But she's launching her recent anthology that is called El alma se mueve en la sombra. The soul conveys itself in shadow. And the editor of the series couldn't come today, but Laura, the publisher of Stenen Press, will introduce it. And yeah, lovely to have you here.
So thank you so much for everyone who braved the trains as well. Apparently it was a little bit tricky this evening. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I'd like to give a special thanks to Ghazal for inviting me and the press. I will do my best to represent here. So I wanted to just say also that Stenen Press is a New York-based press. We specialize in bilingual illustrated poetry, or short form writing, as I like to say. So that means that the premise of each of our books, we're interested in the process of translation, but in particular to invite someone with a visual vocabulary to that process. So as we like to say, we invite authors and translators and visual artists to the table of translation, but because we're curious about what that might yield. So I can say a lot more about that. I won't right now, but that's a matter of introduction. That means that this anthology in particular has a very strong visual component, and you're welcome to go up during the break and have a look. But for example, each of the sections is divided by what is actually a large-size painting, but that has been, functions as an illustration now. So the artist in this particular book, Kit Warren, who's a Brooklyn-based artist, painter, was very much a part of the making of the book and the kind of vision of the way that these translations could come together. So I thought today, there are lots of ways to read this book, which is a total pleasure, but I thought this evening that I would try to offer something that I think is quite unique about this book. Not only is it about 5 pairs of poet translators, it is also, we invited them, or the editors rather, Kaith Miriam Heller and Carolina Gómez-Montoya, invited these pairs to write about their experience of translating each other. So 2 things I'd like to highlight. One is the circularity of this project, that the book is, yes, it is for English speakers, and yes, it is about translation, but it's not a target of English. I really hate that term anyway, but that's, I guess, what we use in translation, right? The target language. But this book is an exercise in circularity, so it passes through English and it goes right back into the other languages, including Spanish, French, Russian, Belarusian, and Chinese. So so what I thought I would do is, instead, I will end with just a couple of very, very short poems, but I thought I would start first with an excerpt from one of those essays, in particular the partnership between Rosa Alcalá and Cecilia Vicuña, who is also, as you know, a visual artist herself. So this is in particular, some commentary, a kind of interview style between the 2 of them, writing back and forth to each other about what it's like to translate each other and what translation means to them. Rosa. Daniel Borzatsky quotes you as saying that translation is the darkness the translator enters to see, quote, what the poem itself saw. I imagine this as meaning that the translator doesn't enter the darkness to probe with a harsh beam of light, but to sit with what curls into itself. Before making a move, the translator learns to respect. To borrow from what Edouard Glissant, the poem's, quote, opacity, what cannot be grasped, meaning possessed or understood. Cecilia. Yes, I imagine the translator entering an impossible situation. Something beyond difficult beckons with its dark light. The negative space, what's not there shapes the rest. José Lezama Lima wrote, El alma cede en la sombra. The soul gives itself in shadow. Rosa. As someone who feels herself an insider-outsider to both Spanish and English, I see and hear too much in even the everyday phrase. That is why I became a poet, that witnessing of language. With the Lezama Lima you quote, which is far from an everyday phrase. Alma, cede, and sombra, individually can have in multiple meanings, but together create for me an intoxicating polyvalence. I see and I hear in the phrase an erotic exchange, an embodied understanding of the soul, an undercurrent of risk. I want the translation to do all of it, perhaps too much. Remember how I'd arrive at your door after work, desperate for illumination when we first started translating your poems? But you rarely met my questions with direct answers. We were, quote, unproductive. We wasted time. We strolled by the river. When we returned, you'd lead us through the dark loft, tenendas, without turning the lights on. Cecilia, I still do that. The dark frees us to be what we are not supposed to be in this culture that suppresses the living wilderness of all creatures and our own creatureness, our own wildness. I remember how difficult it was for you to find a way to translate those first works, but I knew what vibrated in you with the flamenco cante heard at home had placed a seed in you that would lead you to a zone where you already belonged, because you heard it even before you were born. I trusted that you would find the guidance of the pain transformed in the notes that can't be heard, and you did. You became the poet translator the poems wanted. Rosa. I come from textile factory workers who were paid hourly, who spun thread and dyed fabric to meet production quotas. All those factories have gone dark or have been turned into artist housing, but I hold tight the thread of that legacy, and when I tie it to your poems, you begin to sing, and then there are many more threads loose and catching the light. Cecilia, it is so moving to me that you never forgot your parents' factory life, the contamination that affected your family, the pain met with that tison, that inner beauty that never lets go, the threads of humiliation, joy, and laughter we inherit from our parents are forever there if we open up to feel them. I remember when I understood my own translation of threads into poetry, remembering my mother knitting while I crawled on all fours, as babies do, under the threads catching light. What am I translating in my weavings? The umbilical cord metamorphosized into thread, the invisible connection between mother and daughter. So these are three very short poems by Cecilia. And I think it's indicative of this book that in the middle of these poems, Cecilia wrote in English, and then Rosa translated back. So it flips back and forth on the page. And obviously I will just read the English then. Do we have any native Spanish speakers? Any Spanish speakers? No? Oh, okay. All right. I try. Would you? Oh, that would be wonderful. Please, come forward. Yeah. Fantastic. I get to hear it. Okay, well then we will dutifully read left to right.
Yeah, there's second mic.
Except one book.
One
Physics.
Always practice.
So this is called La fibra en coneja. La fibra en coneja, la recién creada relación, nacía deshaciéndose en su propio nacimiento y así solo era posible darla perpetuamente a luz. Ese era el sentido de todos los movimientos terrestres, de todos los infinitos quehaceres. Mantener viva esa sustancia que sin cesar se movía y deshacía y trastocándose renacía. La única fibra, la sustancia melodía que daba origen, fin a nuestros días.
The unconnected fiber. The unconnected fiber, the newly spun thread, was born undoing itself in its birth to be perpetually reborn. This was the meaning of all earthly undertakings, our infinite daily tasks keeping that substance alive as it forever dies and comes undone, unraveling itself to be reborn. The lone fiber, melodic substance, origin and end of our days. My foot says. At night, when I go to bed, my foot says, "Where's my soil, my land?" I long, it says, for the stones, the sand, the irregular, asymmetrical ground of the soul we have been removed from.
Mi pie, disse. Por la noche cuando me acuesto mi pie pregunta dónde está mi tierra, mi país. Añoro, dice, las piedras, la arena, el terreno irregular y asimétrico del alma de donde hemos sido expulsados. Las traducciones cuestionadas. Aunque las traducciones y lecturas en las que me ha basado ahora sean cuestionadas, la recojo como el testimonio de una época ida. Quizás la verdadera traducción de la flor está por ser, y surgirá cuando el último polen y la última flor se hayan extinguido. Es para ese instante que reúno estas versiones. De la suma de mis errores brotará una verdad vegetal.
The disputed translations. Though the translations and the readings on which I have based myself are now being questioned, I gather them as a testimony of a bygone age. Perhaps the truest translation of the flowers yet to come, and it will emerge when the last pollen and final flower have become extinct. It is for that moment I gather these versions. From the sum of my errors, a vegetal truth will bud. Thank you.
And welcome back. And now we are here to launch the Book of Skies. I introduce 3 readers, and then I will just leave the stage to them to manage who will read first and who will read the translation and all that. We'll hear from Julie Carr, and she's a poet, essayist, and academic whose work explores topics such as populism and eugenics in America. Her recent books include Mud, Blood, and Ghosts, Populism, Eugenics, and Spiritualism in the American West, and Real Life and Installation. Julie co-founded the Counterpath in Denver, a small press of poetry and essays, and teaches at the University of Colorado Boulder. She co-translated the Book of Skies with Jennifer Papp, and they'll read from it. And we're also very happy to have another book, The Garden Book of Essays by Julie Carr, published next year by Pominar Press as a collaboration of Pominar Press and Essay Press. So stay tuned for that. And the other translator tonight is Jennifer Papp, a translator of French literature. Jennifer teaches at University of Denver, Colorado, and works on several translations of French writers, including Leslie Kaplan's Disorder, a Fable. I read it bad. Disorder, a Fable. And the forthcoming Miss Nobody Knows. She co-translated the Book of Skies, and we will hear from her soon. And last but not least is Leslie Kaplan. She's at the beginning of her career. Leslie has been, as she continues being an important figure on the French left. She was published over 20 books, including novels, plays, and poetry. Her first book, L'Excès Lausanne or Lausanne? Lausanne. Is 1982, gained the attention of writers such as Marguerite Duras and Maurice Blanchot, becoming an influential work for the 68th generation. Her writing has been translated into several languages, and in 2018, Excess the Factory, what I couldn't say the French word, was translated into English, again by the same translators, Julie Carr and Jennifer Papp. and we will hear from Leslie reading in French as well.
Well, I would just say that I'm very happy to be here, and I won't say anything else because it's really that. And the Book of Skies, translated by Jennifer and Julie, comes after L'excès d'usine, excess that they had also translated. It's the excess of the factory is a book on the world of the factory. And the Book of Skies continues that. It's the story of an encounter between a woman and a man in that world, I would say, under that sky. I think if we read, the first to read is Jennifer, and then I will read just a little in French, so we can hear the French, and then they will go on in English again.
To be more both languages. Yes.
We'll see if we can have some. Yes, and the way we planned it, I'll just add, after a few poems in French, Julie will read in English. So we've all, the same exact poems in English, and we organized this so that, in such a way that we all chose a few poems, not a lot of alternating poem by poem, but a group, and then a group, and then a group, that sort of thing. So I chose a group of poems at the beginning of the book. Beginnings are important. Possibilities are important in Leslie's work, and beginnings. Also because I'm struck, there's a figure of a little girl in these pages that I'm going to read, and I'm struck by, given the context you're talking about, that you just described for us, sort of after the factory, but still the factory. I think it's beautiful. The book begins with a certain kind of a childhood, observed at least. So, it's a scene on a hill, above the motionless sky. How round the world is, little girl. Up here, you're far away. You walk through a little square in a yellow, destitute village. Crumbling stone facades. You walk on a flat surface. The hill undulates. The sky is naked, so open. The houses sit low in this hillside village, painted shutters, thick curtains. You are outside in the blue and white air. Here and there, people stand at their doors. They talk. You can't hear them. The square is enclosed. At the far end, the big church, rectangular and smooth. The hill rises, oval, bare. This village, you pass through it one day, here, up high. A little girl crosses the square. The little girl gives her hand to her mother. The mother wears black, like most of the women. On one side of the square, there's a big loudspeaker with wires. The speaker's trumpet looks like an ear. The wires hang down. For now, nothing comes out of the speaker. The light is hard, transparent. The little girl moves forward across the blue. The little girl looks at her mother while walking. From time to time, she hops from one foot to the other. You see her flat legs. The world is round. Everything's within the movement of the girl. She runs a little, you watch her. She hops in the empty light on the lengthening surface of the square. You leave. I live in a cardboard house on stilts, vague and stiff building, wooden slats. I go up an outside staircase. The house is big, many rooms. Below there's a grocery store with aisles of cans, products. I go out very early. I go to the factory. The path opens under the trees. Round tunnel of leaves far above. I cross the town on a bike. On the bridge, a young guy picks up a cigarette butt to smoke it. I notice his insolent swagger, his jacket. I get undressed when I arrive. We're almost naked, all of us. There's the bearded girl. She's at a machine. As soon as she can, she speaks. Her father doesn't love her, that's what she says. I listen to her story. The girl's pain seems confused. It's full of regret. I cry, too. When I leave, the night is flat, and always this swollen sky. I bike home slowly. I pass the men, unnerved. Here and there in the streets, I run into people I know. I ride the bus. The machinist gets on after me. He's an Italian with black eyes. He explains to me why he has so many children. He doesn't pull out of his wife. He stays in, otherwise there's no pleasure. In the evenings, I visit a couple from the factory. They live in a little house on the corner. The rooms are separated by curtains. It's precarious. They look alike, both very fat. When they were very young, they were involved in the Popular Front. They talk about it often. The woman has adopted me. She gives me old skirts. She would like to see me married off. I come over. We sit in the garden around an iron table. The air is cool. We drink a lot of Ricard. We relax. We laugh about nothing. We're pretty cheerful. Sometimes I go drink a limonade with the priest. He takes me to a little bistro at a flat intersection. Dust. We sit outside. Cars pass, some bikes, and in the distance, smoke. With the priest, it's impossible. He likes the factory.
Later on. The meeting has already happened. Il m'emmène voir sa mère. Elle demeure en banlieue. C'est une petite maison avec 2 étages. Les murs sont peints en bleu et rose. Je suis assise, invitée. Espace plein de la maison et rapiécé, cousu. Partout des rideaux. La radio marche sans arrêt. On dort dans le grand lit en haut. C'est un lit familial. La mère dort en bas. Autour, les champs, les pommes de terre marron, quelques immeubles dispersés. Je regarde les enfants qui rentrent. D'autres restent sur les balcons. I realize I skipped what came before. I'm sorry. So try and think that the page came before. Try. Je l'attends because I didn't remember that we meet, but I mean it. Je l'attends à la sortie du métro. C'est le soir. Le ciel bascule. Les gens se parlent. Il arrive en blouson, la cigarette déjà allumée. Je le regarde monter les marches. Mouvement violent. Quelque chose s'ouvre et reste perdu. Ciel clair, transparent. On sort sur une petite place étroite, au milieu des réverbères. Au coin, il y a un magasin de décoration intérieure, rouleaux de papier, accessoires. Sur les murs, les affiches de la ville. C'est un moment du soir, ambigu et net. comme un point. Autour, les gens, leur incertitude. Les environs de la ville, grands panneaux de réclame dressés, pacifiques. Le ciel est partout, fuyant. L'espace crie. Quelle douceur! Un homme passe, léger. Je vois sa figure rouge, sa chemise qui sort. Je n'ai pas eu peur de mourir, jamais. La petite maison, la pièce, j'entre dedans. Tout le monde est là. Murs et sièges, rideaux. C'est compact, massif. Je mange. Les noms et les verbes peuvent circuler. Tout le monde est là. Visage contre visage. La nourriture est très bonne, très lourde. Corps d'animaux avalés avec les légumes. Des crèmes aussi, au lait. Tout le monde mange. Les murs sont loin, loin. La radio est silencieuse. On est enveloppé quand même. Je sens le papier peint. Des fils invisibles du décor, il n'y en a pas. Il y a les yeux et la haine, sans objet, tolérante.
I'll read the two that Leslie read out of order. I'll read them in order, I think. I wait for him at the metro. It's evening. The sky turns over. People talk to each other. He's wearing a jacket, his cigarette already lit. I watch him come up the steps. Violent movement. Something opens and remains lost. Bright sky, transparent. We come to a little narrow square surrounded by street lamps. On the corner, there's an interior design store, rolls of wallpaper, accessories. On the walls, the municipal posters. It's a moment in the evening, ambiguous and distinct, like a point. All around, people, their uncertainty. He takes me to see his mother. She lives in the suburbs. It's a small house with 2 stories. The walls are painted blue and pink. I'm seated, a guest. The filled space of the house, pieced together, sewn. Everywhere, curtains. The radio is always on. We sleep in the big bed upstairs. It's a family bed. The mother sleeps downstairs. All around, the fields, the brown potatoes. Here and there, some apartment buildings. I watch the children walking home. Others stay on balconies. The outskirts of the city. Big billboards, tall, peaceful. The sky is everywhere, fleeing. Space cries out. What sweetness. A man passes by, weightless. I see his red face, his shirt untucked. I've never been afraid of dying. Never. So we're moving towards the end. The room, our big flat bed. Across from it, the wardrobe with its rigid mirror, reflection. I'm with him, under the quilt, the thick quilt, feathers, weighs nothing, multicolored squares, we are underneath, alive. He's next to me. I see the elastic skin, the searching eyes. He's there, stretched out. Through the window, the humid sky, its holes and its volumes. The quilt is light, intrusive, like a wound. The rolling sky enters, material sky, luminous and mobile, colorless. I feel like a stranger. I watch it. Only one sky. It's there, entire, in the room. They're shouting. What is it really? Something like an effect, a result. Everything's possible and at the same time already known. The night goes by, the day, the light changes. Nobody's there. Whatever shows up in the kitchen around the sink, I know it well. He arrives, sits down, starts to eat my eyes. I don't say anything. I don't speak. The bottles are lying around. We throw them out. We throw the food wrappers out, too. The violence. We don't talk about it, ever. How can one not acknowledge it? It moves through him. He doesn't stop it. It's a violence without representation, in motion. It marries everything. Tight, very tight, and vast, no precision. I admire it also. It's like a woman. I suffer it. I take it with me. I like it all. His clothes, the pants and the belts, the slit eyes, the watch on his wrist, the voice. But sometimes I disappear. The hitting is not a limit. Big, flat slaps. And obscene, confused. One day, they become what they are. Slaps. Unreal event and passive detachment. The present remains, nonetheless. We don't eat. The room is a box. He's always asking. The rot, the growing hair, the air that flames up. I see it. I don't realize it's in me, elsewhere. He raises his head. He shouts. I am with him. He howls. It's like a young corpse. He can't die.
And here are three poems. Oops. Yeah. And here are three poems near the end and the last two poems. Yeah. When I exit the metro, I walk around. Spring, the bitterness of things, the precision of the air. The streets go up towards the trees. The trees are green and red, a little thick, a layer of compacted light. Behind that, the light is more neutral, spreading wide. Open sky without end, permanent sky. The other side reveals itself also. It's too blue. On the corner, the drunk grocer who gives credit. He's crying over his cat. Across the street, a laundromat. It burned down once. The owner is a strong woman. She lives alone. It says so. The narrow sidewalk, the trees, and the air, always without intimacy. Round sky, elastic. I walk on, attentive, exposed. These posters everywhere, these images. The walls are covered. Force of the light, it spreads out. Shattered body, its transparency, this heaviness, and thoughts are like things, precise, imprecise.
I just wanted to say thank you to Ghazal and to Pomenar for publishing this book. It's really an honor to be in this company and part of your amazing press.